I would like to reconvene the school board meeting of September 7th, 2021. We had an executive session on litigation this morning, and that's when we convened our meeting. Then we recessed to now. Deborah Donahue and Stephanie Fuller, if you'd like to speak when the time is appropriate, your forms are not 100% complete, please see Jill and fill in the blanks. Thank you. And tonight I have, the invocation and pledge. So 365 quotes to live your life by. Learn to enjoy every minute of your life. Be happy now. Don't wait for something outside of yourself to make you happy in the future. Think how really precious is the time you have to spend, whether it's at work or with your family. Every minute should be enjoyed and savored. Earl Nightingale. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. As this meeting commences, please be advised that it is the expectation that every person present or who enters this assembly will conduct themselves with civility, courtesy, and restraint. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the district policies and procedures as they relate to order and decorum. Disruptive behavior and actions are counterproductive to the advancement of pertinent district business. Therefore, each individual is warned that failure to conduct oneself with civility and propriety may result in removal. We thank you in advance for everyone's adherence and cooperation. Let the record reflect that Member Kraus, Vice Chair Pennick, Member Calderon, Chair Allman, Superintendent Beeman, and our attorney, Ms. Cole Porter, are in attendance. Member Sanchez will not be able to join us this evening as she is observing Rosh Hashanah. Madam Clerk, do you have any acknowledgement forms? Thank you. Superintendent, any agenda modifications?
The addendum for good cause is marked on our electronic agenda by a green flag named addendum item.
Thank you. Board members, any modifications? Member Krause?
No modifications.
Thank you. Vice Chair Pennock?
No modifications.
Thank you. Member Calderon?
No modifications, ma'am.
Thank you, and I have no modifications. Is there a motion to approve the agenda outline?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent, presentations?
Yes, we'll start with the Veteran of the Month, Ms. Kelly Mitchell.
It is an honor for me to introduce our SCPS Veteran of the Month, Sandra Prieto Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Rodriguez is currently a fourth grade teacher at Spring Lake, and our staff members came together to nominate her for this special honor. Ms. Rodriguez entered the United States Army in August of 2004. She completed basic combat training at Fort Jackson and advanced individual training at Fort Gordon, where she earned the Military Occupation Specialty of 25B, Information Technology Specialist. Staff Sergeant Prieto Rodriguez's first duty assignment was with the 553rd Signal Battalion in Fort Hood, Texas, where she worked at the Information Technology Help Desk. When duty called, she deployed to Al-Assad, Iraq, in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Her next assignment was with 101st Airborne Division in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where she provided direct IT support for 6 battalions at the Headquarters Division. Once again, duty called and she deployed to Camp Speaker in Tikrit, Iraq, as a system administrator. At this time, she was promoted to corporal and given the responsibility of training soldiers in order to maintain all systems, satellites, and communication equipment supporting Operation Enduring Freedom. After deployment, her duty station changed to HHD 30th Signal Battalion in Schofield Barracks. Her responsibilities increased, and she successfully managed the oversight and operations of all servers, systems, and networks supporting the entire U.S. Army Pacific Command, U.S. Army Garrison Hawaii, and the Network Enterprise Center. She completed various courses and IT certifications throughout this time, including the Warrior Leaders Course and Advanced Leaders Course, where she earned the distinctive accomplishment of Honor Graduate for both. Her military career culminated with a prestigious special assignment at the White House Communications Agency on Joint Base Anacostia Bowling in Washington, D.C., where she provided communications support to the President and Vice President of the United States, First Lady, United States Secret Service, and other senior staff as directed by the White House Military Office. Her military awards and decorations include 4 Army Commendation Medals, 2 Army Achievement Medals, 3 Army Good Conduct Medals, a National Defense Service Medal, and several others for deployment recognitions. SSG Prieto Rodriguez always had the desire to teach children throughout her military career. She was part of several volunteer organizations, including Reading Partners, where she assisted students in the local underprivileged District of Washington. After 12 years of dedicated military service, she made the difficult decision to exit the military and pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. She moved to Florida in 2016 and completed her master's degree in elementary education from the University of Central Florida. After graduating from UCF in 2019, she was hired in Seminole County as a 5th grade ELA and social studies teacher working at Spring Lake Elementary. She then taught 4th grade for Seminole County Virtual School in the 2021 school year. Ms. Prieto Rodriguez is back at Spring Lake Elementary this year as a 4th grade ELA and social studies teacher, currently fulfilling her lifelong dream of giving back to students, helping to mold future leaders while instilling pride and confidence into their daily lives. Congratulations and thank you, Staff Sergeant Prieto Rodriguez, for your dedicated service to our country.
Good evening, board members. On behalf of the superintendent, I am honored to introduce 2 of my colleagues who are moving into senior positions this evening. First, a promotion. Our new director of Red Apple Dining is Mr. Jamie DeVivo. Come on down. Jamie received a bachelor's degree in public relations with an outside concentration in mathematics from the University of Florida. After 18 years as a leader in the hospitality industry, he joined SCPS Red Apple Dining in 2006 as coordinator of operations. He's had the privilege to serve as assistant director since 2012 and feels blessed to serve the students, guests, faculty, and the Red Apple Dining team in this new role. And joining him tonight is his wife of 21 years, Stephanie, also an SCPS employee, his son Gabe, who is a senior at Crooms Academy, and daughter Mia in the 8th grade at Rock Lake. Congratulations. And I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to introduce our new Assistant Superintendent of School and Student Success, Dr. Marion Cummings. Dr. Cummings is a proud graduate of Seminole County Public Schools. After graduation from high school, she attended Florida State University and Nova Southeastern University, where she received her doctorate in educational leadership. Dr. Cummings has been employed by SCPS for 36 years as an elementary and high school teacher, then a coach, assistant principal, and most recently, assistant superintendent of elementary schools. She is also the mother of 3 proud SCPS graduates. Congratulations.
And Chairman, for our next item, the focus on student achievement, the presentation will be conducted by Kelly Thompson and Derek Jensen.
Good Good evening, Ms. Beeman and board members. Tonight's Focus on Student Achievement will provide an overview of the STAR 360 interim assessments. STAR 360 is a computer-based adaptive assessment for reading and math that will provide actionable data that can be used to diagnose gaps in students' skills and support the acceleration of student learning. The test, as I said, is adaptive. Students begin with items that are aligned to the student's grade level, and then based upon the student's responses to these items, the assessment adjusts in difficulty to assess the student's current skill level. The use of the STAR 360 assessments ensures that our teachers have at the beginning of the year a data point to determine the learning needs of each student. STAR data will be used in conjunction with formative classroom assessments to assess the development of academic acceleration plans for our students, and will support data-informed decision-making as we make our transition to the best standards. For administration of STAR, there are 3 administration windows for STAR. The fall assessment window will close on September the 10th. The mid-year assessment will take place in January once we return from winter break, and the schools have the option of a spring assessment as well that will be a school-based decision. Each assessment takes about 20 to 25 minutes for the students to complete. We're administering those assessments through ELA classes in grades 6 through 11 and in 12th grade reading classes for students who have yet to meet the FSA grade 10 graduation requirement. For STAR Mathematics, we're administering those assessments in grades 6 through 8 mathematics courses, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Liberal Arts Math. This slide provides a look at some of the items for STAR. The items quickly assess students' acquisition of grade level benchmarks and provides teachers with immediate feedback. For the reading sections are both fiction and nonfiction, and all the assessment items are multiple choice. And Mr. Jensen will address the rest of the program content.
So as Ms. Thompson referenced, we are using STAR for student-level action planning, not school comparisons, but allowing teachers to gain valuable immediate insight into where their students are and what skills they need so they can make those critical in-the-moment instructional planning decisions to address those students' learning needs. And the way teachers access this is through their Clever portal. They have a tile in there, they click it, it opens up the available reports to them. They click on the instructional planning reports that they would like to look at, and it provides them a screen like this. This is a report called the Teacher Instructional Planning Report, and as you can see at the top of the report, it provides the student's name and some basic information, as well as their scale score relative to their peer norm group. And you can see it being placed within categories of being at or above benchmark, on watch, intervention, or a student in need of urgent intervention. And so that gives you kind of a holistic portrait of where a student is at, but as a teacher scrolls down, they'll also see suggested skills for that student. So for each individual student, and teachers can pull this report for a whole class or group as well, they can see what skills the program recommends the student attempting next. And so when the students take the exam, it kind of positions them with what skills they're doing well on and what skills they're struggling with as it adapts, and then they get the teacher gets this report that even has focus skills. So the focus skills are what the program kind of identifies as these might be some really strong next moves for the student or some critical needs to address next for this student. Of course, with any large new assessment or program or instructional rollout in our district, we really wanted to attend to our teachers and families' needs. And so from the professional development lens, our test coordinators were trained by our assessment and accountability department before pre-plan. We had online professional development sessions run by Renaissance for teachers and school administrators right at the beginning of pre-plan. And that on-demand recording was shared for all schools. We also had teacher accounts. All teachers are able to access on-demand blended learning through the platform for any topic that they're interested in. And then we're also integrating STAR, of course, into our PLC work with our teachers. So as we're supporting all of the professional learning communities in our schools and looking at data to drive instruction, this is one of those valuable data points in addition to many others that Ms. Thompson's team works with. And then all schools have access to 2 customized PD sessions based on their individual school needs. And those are for administrators to kind of work with STAR on what topics their individual school needs, whether that's evaluating data, instructional planning using STAR, et cetera. For parent communication, we provided parents with a letter explaining the STAR assessment prior to the test administration in August. The results will be uploaded into Skyward. So in Skyward, just like we do with something like iReady, we'll have a scale score. We'll also upload a percentile rank, the benchmark description, and we'll have an information document with links to an explanation, additional resources for teachers, and we're going to be encouraging in all these communications parents to discuss the results with their teacher and how that can impact learning for their student throughout the year. And with that, I'll close.
Board members, comments? Member Calderon.
Are these assessments being taken in the classroom? You said they were during ELA period. I just didn't know if somebody was out that day, if they'd have the opportunity to make up.
Absolutely, especially with everything happening at the beginning of the school year. That was part of the motivation behind extending the testing window. And so we really want all of our schools to have the opportunity to assess all of their students within the school day. And so the students, either in a lab setting, using devices that they have in class, they have the opportunity during any school day to quickly take the assessment.
Are we also going to offer it to our Seminole County virtual students, or they are totally on a different curriculum?
Seminole County virtual students are following a different curriculum progression, and so typically they do not participate in our iReady progress monitoring system, nor with STAR. They have other progress monitoring systems built into the learning that's part of Seminole County Virtual School.
Good. I just know a lot of people had changed their decisions right before school, and I just wanted to make sure that we were assessing their learning gaps as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Great information. Board members, do you have any items for discussion? Member Krause? Thank you.
I just wanted to take a personal moment. Many of you have reached out to my family, and I want to thank you for that. My dad passed away on Sunday. He was holding his nurse Annie's hand, and she had James Taylor radio playing, the music playing for him on his phone. My dad contracted COVID when he went in for surgery. He tested negative when they admitted him and positive when they released him. The reason I bring up my personal story is to share that what my dad believed, and he shared with all of us. You should stand up when you see an injustice. Sadly, I believe our special meeting on September 2nd was an injustice. I want it to be known that 83% of our families were not represented. The advice of our medical professionals was ignored, and we were absent a board member whose opinion I respect. We took inaction on a very important matter. I have a request for our superintendent to extend the current mask rule currently in place. And I'd also ask that this board not make important decisions unless and until our full board can weigh in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Krause. Vice Chair Pennock.
I have no comments.
Member Calderon.
I just want to personally apologize publicly for the oversight in our calendaring of this meeting occurring on the high holy day of Rosh Hashanah, and to assure the public that it was no disrespect. It was an oversight, and for that I apologize personally. Those that reached out to me, I offered to share their comments, but knowing that they're celebrating their holiday, they probably could not get them back to us. So I would ask for the leniency of this board to make sure that we have plenty of time in future meetings to hear all the voices that were unable to speak tonight, so their voices are heard. Thank you.
I have no comment. Vice Chair Pennock, please read the public input statement.
Public comments related to education, the board agenda, and the district are welcome and encouraged. The public comment opportunity is not, however, an open forum to discuss matters unrelated to education, to support or oppose candidates for public office, or to engage in commercial speech attempting to sell a service or a product to the board or the public. Also, public comment is not a forum to engage in personal attacks against school system employees or board members. To maintain orderly conduct, the public comment segment of this meeting may not be used for any other purposes, including presentation of political and/or campaign issues, matters involving disciplinary action, pending employee disciplinary matters, or pending claims, complaints, or litigation against the district or district personnel. Participants are required to engage in meaningful but civil communications. The presiding officer of the board or the parliamentarian may order the removal of any person interfering with the expeditious or orderly process of such meeting, provided such officer has first issued a warning that continued interference with the orderly process of the meeting will result in removal. All statements shall be directed at the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Each statement made by the member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes in duration. A designated group representative will have a maximum of 6 minutes. No speaker may yield his or her time to another person. This policy does not prohibit the board from maintaining orderly conduct or proper decorum in a public meeting.
Thank you. And I'll call you when it's close to your time and remind you to please wrap up your comments. So Haley Donahue, Deborah Donahue, and Kathy Savage. Good evening. Good evening. Please identify yourself. Thank you.
The American Civil Liberties Union states that dress codes have historically been used to police girls in schools, disproportionately targeting girls of color, gender nonconforming girls, and trans girls, among others. Furthermore, these dress codes continue to perpetuate gender stereotypes and gender roles, as well as furthering racial discrimination. The Winter Springs High School dress code includes the term do-rags, an article of clothing associated with a racial minority, and does not offer any reasons as to why this article of clothing is banned on campus. Additionally, backless dresses and tube tops make an appearance on the dress code, both of which are articles of clothing that are predominantly worn by female-presenting students, not masculine-presenting students. In the Seminole County Public School dress code, the word cleavage is used, further targeting female-presenting students. Oftentimes, the arguments for why these items of clothing are banned in schools and classrooms is because they might impede the learning environment or cause a distraction. A clause in the dress code stating that printed profanity or language, symbols, styles of clothing that promote the use of alcohol, drugs, tobacco products, or gang-related activity are banned, and this makes quite a bit of sense. However, the reasoning behind a backless dress possibly causing a distraction in the classroom leaves little to the imagination in terms of sexism and sexist language. I ask you to reevaluate the dress code, especially when considering that schools in Seminole County are unable to mandate masks. I ask you that you could do something to change this. After all, it is my body, my choice when it comes to a mask, and it should be the same when it comes to what clothes students can wear to school, especially when there is targeted language that actively discriminates against both racial minorities and feminine-presenting individuals. Both groups are protected by Title VII and Title IX, respectively. Thank you, and Shana Tova to everyone celebrating today.
Haley, why don't you leave your comments with Mr. Rice, and then he can consider it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just point of order. If we can have everyone please silence their cell phone or turn it off so as not to be disruptive. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. I am one of the 83%. I support science. I'm one of the 83%. I listened to your medical experts last week. I'm one of the 83%. I support the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations for masks in school for K through 12. I'm asking you to do the same. We're having issues in this community with COVID. People have passed away. We have staff members who have passed away, and it is high time that we do something. I'm one of the 83% of the families that support masks within this community, and I vote.
Thank you. Kathy Savage, Stephanie Fuller, and then Autumn Garrick.
Hi, Kathy Savage, science teacher at Oviedo High School. You chose to ignore your own panel of experts, people with MDs and PhDs in medicine and epidemiology, in favor of those who feel they have obtained equivalent degrees and experience on Google. You chose to ignore the 83% majority of parents you stated have not opted their children out of wearing masks in favor of the 17% who do. You then chose to ignore the desires and requests of your own administrators in the name of just getting on with things because you are tired of hearing the same old argument again and again. I am tired too. I am tired of tutoring on my own time the 18 to 20 students who are absent each day, tired of makeup work and rewriting tests. I'm tired of having my classes or others' classes sent to waste their time in the lunchroom because there aren't enough subs. I have 9 to 12 students in each class period who are unmasked. That's 36% of my students, more than 2 times the number of parents who have opted out. And yet you have chosen to muzzle me in my classroom. You have prevented me from saying anything to these students whose parents think they are wearing masks. Yes, let's get on with the business of educating our children. Let's wear masks so subs feel more comfortable coming back into the classroom. Let's wear masks to minimize the educational disruptions of students quarantined some over and over again. Let's wear masks so I can safely put students together in groups to do labs. Let's wear masks so that we can get back to educating our children like we are supposed to be doing. We teachers are tired. We would like nothing more than to get back to educating our children. You can fix this. The power to end this madness is in your hands.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Fuller. Several of you know me. Normally, I write something when I get up and speak. This time, I did not because, as the previous speaker said, you guys have heard it all. You've heard all the arguments. So I have a question for you, even though I know you cannot answer me directly right now. I ask that you consider this afterwards. When is enough enough? When have enough students been quarantined? When have enough classes had to sit in the auditorium or in the lunchroom because there's no teacher available to teach them? When are you going to accept that you cannot get enough subs to fill the positions that you have right now because nobody wants to take the risk of being in a class with no mask mandate without parental opt-out? When is it going to be enough kids infected with COVID? Over 280,000 since August 10th in Florida. When is it going to be enough educators killed by COVID? When is it going to be enough students killed by COVID? What is it going to take to make you act on this? Please consider these questions. You have heard all of the arguments. Please think about it. We need that. And to the student who spoke up about the dress policy, I completely agree. My daughter was dress coded because one time her shirt, which was long enough to cover her rear, rode up, and the teacher wasn't satisfied when she pulled it down. So I think that issue has gotten out of hand. So I completely agree, and I applaud her for having the courage to stand up wherever you are. So thank you. And I know this is a difficult issue. I know it's divisive, and I know that that you're concerned about, your electorate and about your careers after. But your ultimate duty is to the students and to your staff and to your teachers. Your ultimate duty is to protect them. And bottom line, you cannot pretend to be a leader in STEM education when you ignore the S in STEM. It's science. Don't ignore it, please. Thank you.
Autumn, then Debbie Smith, then Betsy J., and Rebecca Newman.
Hello.
My name is Autumn Huff-Garrick, and until 2019, I presented literacy enhancement programs in schools throughout Seminole and Orange County. I stopped because I do not feel safe. I'll be brief. You have ignored experts far smarter than I. You have ignored community members far more eloquent than I. And so I'm going to say it simply. Please enact a universal mask mandate. COVID is not over. I stand with the 83%.
My name is Debbie Smith. I attended the special meeting last Thursday, and I was extremely disappointed in your decision not to institute a mask mandate with an exemption for medical conditions. After all of the health department information, the way it was just disregarded, like, we got to move on, nothing to see here, it's all over, was unbelievable. But I'm also concerned about the behavior of those shouting at the board, heckling speakers, picking on a 15-year-old student who spoke, basically calling her a coward for wearing a mask. You let that happen. That set a poor precedent. I've lived in Seminole County since 1989. It's heartbreaking to witness the misinformation, the anger of those who want to destroy public education in this county. The sad reality is that they are succeeding without any pushback from board members. Please do better for the public school children. For any parent to wear a t-shirt that reads, quote, "I don't co-parent with the school board," end quote, doesn't understand everything a teacher does for their children. Teachers spend more waking hours with their children than many of these parents. I know because I taught grades pre-K through second for 16 years. I was the parent for a boy's first paper cut, providing comfort and, yes, medical attention. I was a parent when a child's tooth was hanging by a thread and she wanted me to pull it. She was afraid it would fall out. She would swallow it, and the tooth fairy wouldn't come. Medical attention. I was a parent when a child wanted to talk about his grandpa who had passed away over the weekend. I'm a co-parent. I was a parent guiding a child who moved here from another country through language and cultural differences. I was a parent when a child came to school visibly upset because he saw the police throw his dad on the ground and arrest him for messing up his mommy's car. I was a parent when a child with life-threatening allergies went on a field trip and I had to wipe down every ride before he could get on it. I was a parent when a 4-year-old with a heart condition had to wear leads and a monitor. I was given an alarm device to wear to alert me if there was a change with his heart. I couldn't be more than 30 feet away from him or the signal wouldn't transmit. I'm a co-parent. When I hear these freedom parents say that teachers should only teach my child reading, writing, and arithmetic, the board does nothing to push back against that narrative. It makes my stomach turn. Their lack of understanding of what a teacher does for their children is beyond comprehension.
Please wrap up your comments.
If these parents don't want teachers to co-parent with them, then they need to start homeschooling their children and stay out of these meetings. It's past time for school board members to start standing up for teachers and defending public schools, because you're selling us out to those who want to privatize education in this state.
Thank you.
I'm going to take this off because I want to be sure I'm heard. Superintendent Beeman and members of the board, I'm Betsy Jewell from Oviedo, and my kids have attended Seminole County Public Schools for over 10 years. I'm not here today to argue for or against a mask mandate. I'm here today to talk about the lack of leadership and the lack of courage you've displayed in this process over the last few weeks. When you were elected to this position, you took an oath to uphold our district's mission and guiding principles. I'd like to call to your attention the School Board Policy Manual, page 12. Letter E states, data collection and analysis will be essential parts of the decision-making process. And letter H states, decisions will be based on what is in the best interest of students. As witnessed over the past few weeks, you have neglected to hold up these principles. Again, I'm not here to share my opinion on a mask mandate. It's not for me to say, because I am not an expert. And I assume that's true of every person in this room. Not one person who will step up to this microphone tonight will be an expert in the field of pandemic health. And if they claim to be, I'd love to see their credentials. But until that happens, no one here is qualified or equipped to tell you how to vote on this issue. Nor are any of you qualified or equipped to make such an important decision based on your own personal bias or what you believe to be true. That's why you engage the experts and act on their advice. Last Thursday's meeting demonstrated a blatant lack of leadership from you. And because of that, I hold you accountable for the 7+ hours of wasted time listening to conspiracy theories and delusional tirades. That is not data collection. That's public venting and an enormous waste of time. It was in your power to stop the meeting and refuse to continue with public comments until order was restored, but that did not happen. And now we are a disgraceful punchline for national news. If you're worried about legal issues around mask mandates, that process is going to be tied up for months to come, and our kids can't wait that long. If you're worried about being reelected, then by all means, hold more public comment sessions so you can be perceived about caring about both sides of the issue. Implementing an optional mask mandate is not a decision, it's pandering. And pandering is the opposite of leadership. There is a time and place for public comments. In fact, it's an essential part of these proceedings. But for what took place last Thursday, you'd been better off staying home reading Facebook. A poll published this morning in USA Today reports that the public favors mask mandates in schools by 2 to 1. That's a pretty significant majority. But that isn't a reason to pass a mask mandate. It isn't about public opinion. It's about science, and science doesn't care what people believe. It is well past time that you demonstrate to us that you have cut through the noise, that you have done your homework, and that you own this decision. Because at the end of the day, like it or not, that's your job, and that's what's best for students.
Becca Newman, then Kim Finnegan, then Frank Hunt.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Newman from Oviedo, and I'm here just to talk about 2 things. First, I want to ask you to please review your public comment policies and procedures, bylaws 169.1. Several violations of your very own policy occur frequently at these meetings, particularly at the special meeting last Thursday, including presentation of campaign issues, disorderly conduct, and frequent interruptions. In fact, the school board meetings these last few months have become the new QAnon rallies or Facebook conspiracy theory meetups. You have no method in place to fact-check the misinformation and racist garbage that is spewed for hours on end, sometimes by people not even in this district. The unchecked disinformation perpetuates bullying, hatred, and anti-science. Please use the policies that are within your powers to set some reasonable parameters so we as a school district do not continue to be the butt of jokes around the state and the country. Some decorum, civility, and actual facts would better represent an A school district. Second, I am completely confused by the board's call for a special meeting last Thursday. Why call doctors and medical experts who report the very bleak COVID numbers and suggest a full mask mandate as a mitigation strategy for this county if you don't plan to heed their advice? Why tout the school district as a superior STEM education district if you don't intend to follow the science anyway? You can stick your head in the sand all that you like, But your administrators and teachers need help. I just got an email letter from my child's school principal today pleading for substitution help. No one wants to work in a germ-infested place with zero mitigation protections or strategies. Your role modeling and messaging for students and teachers is confusing, contradictory, and frankly embarrassing. Do better.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. My name is Kim Finnegan, and I live here in Oviedo. First, I'd like to let you all know that I am also one of the 83% who do support masking and would like the board to reconsider last week's decision on the mask mandate, please. But while masking is certainly a vital and necessary tool for helping us all get out of this ongoing pandemic, that is not my main purpose for speaking tonight. Last week, several board members mentioned wanting to get back to the business of running schools, and I agree. After listening to many speakers over the last few months here in this room, I would like to clarify some of the misconceptions and outright untruths and the detriment these misconceptions can cause surrounding a couple of school-related issues here in Seminole County. Back in July, a simple suggestion to recognize June as Pride Month on the school board website brought a tidal wave of ignorance and thinly veiled prejudice against our LGBTQ+ students. Several speakers addressed their baseless fears that if the school board recognized or even acknowledged the existence of this marginalized community in any way, it would open the door to teaching our students about all kinds of explicit sex and other moral horrors. Being gay isn't primarily about sex, any more than being straight is only about sex. Why any of this is anybody's business is beyond me. But these are kids we're talking about, kids in elementary school, in middle school, in high school, who continue to feel very othered and are often mocked, bullied, and otherwise made miserable by their peers, and occasionally their teachers, in a place that should be their safe zone, their school. A simple acknowledgement of their existence is the least this board could do, and I appreciate the action the board has taken to interview students in our LGBTQ+ community, to the school community, to get a real-time picture of how these kids are faring, but we still have a lot of work to do. My main point here is that our LGBTQ+ kids are not something or someone to fear. No one is talking about indoctrinating kids with the gay agenda, whatever that is, and these kids simply want to walk the halls of their schools without fear or shame and be seen for the amazing humans they are, just like any child in our system should be able to, straight, gay, trans, or otherwise. A second school-related issue I'd like to touch on is the current hysteria regarding critical race theory. CRT is a framework developed by legal experts from Harvard and other prestigious universities over 40 years ago. It's used to help us understand why racial inequities exist in our society and how we can eradicate them. It's not a curriculum. It's not some subversive indoctrination scheme to transform our students into violent anarchists ready to burn it all down. CRT encourages those who study it to become more civically engaged by equipping them with the tools needed to think critically about issues of race and racism. Thinking critically does not mean criticizing white people. It simply means to make an objective analysis evaluating an issue in order to make an informed judgment. Schools have always made teaching critical thinking a major goal in preparing our students for the real world, where they'll have to be able to make informed decisions every day. And it's those very skills that are now in jeopardy because of this baseless fear of the idea that CRT perpetuates tensions between races, and allowing our kids to see history from any view other than that of the traditional abridged version is tying the hands of many of our teachers. Many fear repercussions for even mentioning that all of our history has an ugly side, that some of our history has an ugly side. And this does a disservice to our students who deserve to learn our country's often dark history in order to make educated decisions on what direction our country will take in the not so distant future. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Hunt, Cheryl Bryant, Jessica Tillman, Polly DeLucia.
Good evening. My name is Frank Hunt. I want to speak to a few things on the agenda tonight. One is brain pop. Brain pop deals with a lot of controversial subjects. Our problem is we don't mind controversial subjects, but only when there's both sides being presented and not one side. It's very one-sided. It's part of CRT. It just talks about systemic racism, and it's a racially based instruction. The $64,000 that you're going to pay to renew Brain Pop will be better spent on teaching our younger students cursive writing and multiplication tables. Now, about this 87% is a misrepresentation of the support of the mask mandate or non-mask mandate. If you compare the number of parents that came last week against the mask to the ones who came this week for masks, you'll see that we greatly outnumber the mask mandate. Now, we are saying that everybody should have their personal freedom to decide. If you want a mask, that's fine. If you don't want a mask, that's fine. If masks are really effective, then what's the problem with someone having not a mask on? If your mask is effective, it shouldn't be a problem if somebody else is not masked. If you look at most of the older students who can think for themselves and not have to rely on others like younger students, the majority of them are not wearing masks in the schools. Now, also, I want to address on your agenda, there's 3 positions that are going to be voted on today, and a 4th one called data scientist. 3 of these positions are related to red apple dining. If we're not careful, our building here is going to be taller than the one in Orange County School Board Administration. I worked for 4 years at teaching in Orange County, and it was very administrative heavy and did not serve the students well. So we like to say that don't take our freedoms away. You can mask if you want or not mask. But all the science, we don't look at Google, we look at real science. We don't look at mainstream media. They've been lying to us for decades. So we hope that you will continue to not take our personal freedoms away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Bryant. Thank you for your decision at the last meeting in refraining from succumbing to fear and hysteria. Throughout the Brain Pop app used by Seminole County Public Schools, there's evidence that Brain Pop stands firmly behind Black Lives Matter and CRT. There are cartoons, references, and the masked poison ideas themselves throughout the app. As the phrase Black Lives Matter is simultaneously an obvious truth in our contemporary era, who does not believe that Black Lives Matter? Of course they do. And the same 3 words, but capitalized, stand for a multi-million-dollar movement and a network of organizations that have spearheaded, orchestrated, and been the face of the actions taken by the misguided after the death of George Floyd, which resulted in 19 dead people, over $2 billion in property damage, and 1,500 innocent businesses destroyed in Minnesota alone. All this destruction and evil considered, what is the FBI's definition of terrorism? Violent criminal acts committed to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influence, such as those of religious, social, racial, or an environmental nature. BLM then qualifies as a terrorist organization, with Antifa flanking them in their destructive actions. The founders of BLM, Patrisse Cullors, Opal Tonetti, and Alicia Garza, organized around the phrase Black Lives Matter and used it for their style of neo-Marxist and intersectional queer feminist black liberation identity politics. It is a politics that claimed on the BLM website, until it was removed because of pressure, that we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. Critical race theory applied principles, or CRAP, is the dominant ideology behind the BLM social movement, the network of BLM organizations, and it is now infused in the otherwise innocuous phrase Black Lives Matter, lowercase. Un-American critical race applied theory explicitly diverged from the traditional approaches to civil rights by calling into question the liberal order, equality theory, Enlightenment rationalism, and the Judeo-Christian ethic and the neutral principle of constitutional law. CRAP holds that the most important thing about you is your race, the color of your skin. That is who you are, not your behavior, not your values, not your environment, your race. That is racist.
Please wrap up your comments.
Needless to say, it's heartbreaking to see the promotion of BLM throughout the Brain Pop app. All vestiges of CRT and BLM must be removed from the public school curricula. It promotes race essentialism, collective guilt, and neo-segregation. Alternatives must be found. A whole generation is being destroyed by this neo-Marxist rubbish. And in addition to that, even though the curricula may not be labeled CRT, we are not stupid. We recognize the ideology, no matter what it is called. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, and a turd by any other name smells like crap.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Tillman. I'm a Longwood resident. I am speaking on behalf of Moms for Liberty. We support our board members who support parental rights, the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the state of Florida. We do not co-parent with the government. I have a whole speech written out here, but I'm just going to talk about it. Masks don't work. They do not impact the spread of a virus. It says right on the box. We need to have choice. Parents deserve the right to choose what is put on their child's face, what is injected into their children. It's important to know that parents are the ones speaking for our children. We believe all students should be supported and all of their needs are met, no matter their medical status, race, gender, religious beliefs, or any other characteristic that makes them unique. I personally have been emailing this board for almost a year now, sending you research articles, data, expert opinions, and opinions that don't go with the flow of what the experts you're looking at from your hospitals. They're not the only experts out there. It is time we move on from this. We need to add medical freedom to policies 1122, 8450, 2260, and 8510. Parents, students, and staff deserve to make their own medical choices, no matter what that means. If you can't prove and provide supporting details of masks work to stop a virus, then you can't mandate this on students. You shouldn't mandate it on staff. This should be a medical choice made with a practitioner and parents. When a broad table is to be made and the edges of planks do not fit, the artist takes a little from both and makes a good joint. In like manner, here, both sides must part from some of their demands in order that they may join in some accommodating proposition. Benjamin Franklin. Every time you bring up mask mandates with no option, you divide even more. Allow this mask procedure to expire and move on. It is insane to continue a mask mandate for 0.004% of the school population active with COVID right now. You don't want us to show up in movements? Stop calling special meetings and wanting to take away parents' rights. It is the right of parents to make these choices. In this procedure now, and let's move on, educating our kids, focusing on what we're teaching our children, and allow parents to parent their children. Thank you.
After Polly, Elaine Thomas, Jeff James, and Rachel Bittner.
My name is Polly DeLucia. I live in Monterey Oaks and Sanford. My older daughter attended Goldsboro Millennium Middle School and Seminole High School, graduating last spring. My younger daughter attended Idlewild, but is now at Seminole County Virtual School. I come before you today to ask that you serve our children at this moment. Please do not consider the future implications of your decisions if they are the right ones at this time. Be guided by community health professionals and solid data. If you can feel constrained by the state in your actions, speak up for home rule of our schools. Please remember that at any time you hear from a minority of parents in these meetings or by email, though I know it may not seem that way. Look instead at the overwhelming number of families who send their children to school in masks or have enrolled in virtual school. These parents are working with you to ensure the safety of children, students, and staff. The public public health situation in Seminole County is going to continually change. Last year, we saw case rates rise through the holidays and into the new year. Please be conservative in your decisions. Rely on the guidance of our community professionals. Remember, it is much easier to extend existing mask policies pending future changes than to reinstate them. In closing, I would like to add that I have a background in education and would qualify to serve as a Seminole County Public School substitute. I would be pleased to serve my community in this crisis. I can't, because I can't put my family at risk. Please carefully consider not only the health challenges facing our community, but the educational challenges facing this school district. The solution to many of these problems seem to have the same answer. Please follow the guidance of the CDC and our own Seminole County community health leaders. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elaine Thomas. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity tonight. I'm speaking about the C-19 vaccine and the ungodly pressure the schools, administrators, and government is putting on people to receive the shot. I say shot because it doesn't stop transmission or contraction. In fact, Walensky, the director of the CDC, is concerned that the current strong protection against severe infection, hospitalization, and death could decrease in the months ahead. Of course, this was in reference to the shot not providing immunity against the Delta variant, even though no such test exists to differentiate between C-19 and the Delta variant or other variants, let alone that the Delta variant has yet to be isolated. Okay, so we've got that under the way. Efficacy is diminishing, and the media, hospitals, and doctors are not speaking about the adverse reactions, at least not the doctors that aren't being censored. Saying it is minimal is criminal. But would you say it's minimal if it were your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your child? There have been over 6,986 deaths reported on VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System from the CDC, which on average is 12% underreported. If it could just save one life, that was the mantra for getting the vaccine, to protect you and others. Flip that. Wouldn't the same principle apply to saying no to the vaccine if it could save one life? The virus has over a 99% chance of survival. In fact, I survived. No vaccine, no hospital, no pharmaceuticals, just good old-fashioned vitamins, lots of C, hydration, and plenty of sleep, as did my family. The reality is these shots do have adverse reactions. Please consider these reactions when continuing with the pressure of faculty and staff to get the shot and the student athletes. All three cases I'm reading are Florida VAERS cases, 18 to 29-year-old, expired July 2021, presented lower extremity deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary thrombosis, cerebral thrombosis, leading to death. Another 18 to 29-year-old, expired in July 2021, became confused, had cardiac arrest with seizure, EMS called, taken to 2 hospitals, multiple resuscitation efforts and defibrillation, leading to death. Another healthy 25-year-old male, very physically active, no health issues, suddenly had horrible headache at 2 a.m., threw up, went to take a shower, girlfriend found him 10 to 20 minutes later, purple in the shower. Called EMS, heart and lungs brought back with defibrillator and ventilator. CT scan showed massive brain hemorrhage, no brain activity. Pronounced dead, Tuesday, August 3rd. It's real. Vaccine injury for this is incredible, the amount of deaths. Okay, one more sentence. Again, one vaccine death is too much. I ask you to stop putting undue pressure on teachers, staff, and students with the reward of COVID pay if and when sick, and lessen quarantine times if vaccinated.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I knew this matter wouldn't be over. That's why I'm back today.
Name, please, for the record.
My name's Jeff James, as I was here last Thursday. I do agree with one thing with the parents that support masks, that the quarantining is quite ridiculous, and I have a few solutions. And I do want to state I'm not a medical expert, but I do listen to a lot of medical experts that maybe the mainstream media does not listen to, and I stated a lot of them last time. And I guess on YouTube I was getting fact-checked by some leftist propagandist YouTubers, but that's good because it gets the word out. So anyways, my solution is if you have any power to not listen to the Department of Health so much and take into consideration other places and just simply stop testing, don't use PCR tests for testing because those are false positives anyways. I think the CDC even stated on their website they don't even recommend using them anymore. As a matter of fact, in December, they're supposed to come out with a new one that will differentiate flu from COVID. So instead of allocating funds for all this PPE, I have a solution recommendation, and that's to use funds for medications and vitamins like HCQ, ivermectin, vitamin D, zinc. You know, whenever the mainstream media knows that you're over the target with something, they attack it. Ivermectin's been in the news a lot recently. And usually when you have a lot of people saying, oh, you get that from a tractor supply store for horses, that it really scares them. And the reason why they do that is because HCQ and ivermectin have been around for over 50 years. They're generics. They're very cheap. What do pharmaceutical companies do? They want to profit and make a lot of money. For example, Pfizer made, I think it was $13.5 billion in Q2 of 2021. The way they made their money was it wasn't so much from the COVID vaccine, but it was from the other medicines like Eliquis and another one I can't remember the name of. But when there are side effects from these vaccines, such as arrhythmia and blood clotting, that's where they make their profits from. So make no mistake about it, this is purely something that the pharmaceutical industries, they pay for a lot of medical programs. They pay the Department of Health funding from their own pockets. So if you do the research, you'll clearly see. Also, I want to state thank you for those of you that were courageous, brave enough to give us parental opt-out and not reinstate a mandate on everybody. Thank you.
Rachel Bittner, then Joyce Stricker, then Kenneth Bentley. Order. 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 Good evening.
Rachel Bittner. Ms. Krause, sorry for your loss, but leveraging that for influence on school board policies is emotional manipulation.
Excuse me, ma'am, do not address a board member directly. Do you have a comment for the entire board? Please proceed with that comment.
Okay. So, quick question. Who donated $79 million to the Imperial College of London in March 2020, just before lockdown? Anybody know? Bill Gates. Where did the projection model that drove the global lockdown come from? Imperial College of London. See a connection? The Ferguson model was one of the most influential papers in memory and sadly one of the most wrong papers. Former Chief of Science at the European Centre of Disease Control. Who's the majority funder of the CDC and the WHO? Bill Gates. That are directing the government's policies worldwide on the vaccine. Interesting. Who's a major financial stakeholder in the global vaccine production? Bill Gates. Who's a self-proclaimed eugenist, speaking at TED Talks on the subject and carrying on the family business from his father and his grandfather? Bill Gates. Hey, you guys remember that guy who was
prosecuted by the US government on federal charges of antitrust violations for creating a computer virus so that he could sell the antivirus. What's he doing now? I wonder. Directing global health policies on a virus. You connecting any dots here? Oh, also, do you find it troubling that Anthony Fauci is a major financial stakeholder in the production of the vaccines and is also influencing the global policies on the direction of the vaccines being delivered? I find it troubling that taxpayer dollars funded the research and the manufacture of these vaccines, that the pharmaceutical companies are making billions of dollars in profit and cannot be sued when anybody is dead or injured from these products. Can you think of any other product where if somebody is dead or injured from them, that you cannot hold the manufacturer liable? The VAERS system shows over 13,000 deaths. There's a Harvard study that proves that that is only 1% of the actual deaths. That's this year.
Please wrap up your comments.
There's a lawsuit been filed against the US government with sworn affidavit and documented evidence that the government has concealed 45,000 vaccine deaths this year on another reporting system, and that there are 12 reporting systems total, not just VAERS. Fun fact on masks.
Your time is up.
Did you know that they are part of satanic ritual abuse? Think it's funny? They're part of satanic rituals, just like 6 feet distancing.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Order.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joy Stricker. I live in Sweetwater Oaks. Do you remember where you were 20 years ago when the towers fell? I do. I was in a condo in Jupiter, 6 months pregnant with my first child. My mom called from her home in Brooklyn and told me to stay inside because America was under attack. My husband called from work and said, take out lots of cash in case the bank shut down. And here I am, 20 years later, fighting for basic constitutional rights against my own school board. I never thought this day would come, but here we are. At last month's meeting, the possibility of a community coalition was brought up as a way to get Seminole County to unite. After careful consideration of this idea, I realized it had a fatal flaw. Parents from both sides of the political aisle will never join hands and stand in a circle around a bonfire singing Kumbaya. First of all, people who are 100% pro-mask and 100% pro-vax are deathly afraid of the rest of us who are in favor of informed consent, medical autonomy, and parental rights. Second of all, this board's motion to recognize Pride Month backfired by forcing liberals and conservatives to argue against each other. Does Jesus love everyone, or does the Bible prohibit all sex outside of a marriage? I don't know, but I do know that this discussion never belongs at a school board meeting. Finally, I know you had somebody say, if it's in the statutes, we teach it, and if it's not in the statutes, we don't teach it, which should have been the end of the story, but parents know all about your equity committee. We know the superintendent wanted to make it a superintendent committee instead of a school board committee so that it would be closed to the public. After the recent superintendent search, we don't trust any of you to do anything without 100% transparency. If you really want to fix the mess you made, say you are banning all forms of CRT. Disband your equity committee. Tell the teachers union to keep their political views to themselves until lunchtime. Are teachers pushing pronouns as a clever way to weed out transgenders who might be more prone to suicide? Throwing transgender intel into a child's lap will only cause confusion. Stop trying to highlight your favorites. Between black and white, mandate of freedom, and LGBTQ or straight. COVID is stressful enough. We had to tell our daughters who will be their guardians if we died, since we are both high risk. Adopt a targeted approach to mental health for all students by utilizing guidance counselors. Enforce your existing anti-bullying policies by utilizing principals. Tell parents about the HOPE Scholarship. Just helps those students that have quantifiable financial disadvantages. Stop helping groups based upon your perception of their social disadvantages. I vow to continue speaking at meetings until this board makes a concerted effort to focus on education as opposed to indoctrination. Until you can find an ounce of courage and put the woke horse back in the barn, I say no unity. Thank you.
Thank you. So Kenneth Bentley, Eric Wilson, J.J. Holmes, and Allison Holmes. Good evening.
Good evening, Superintendent Beeman and board members, also the attorney. 63 years ago yesterday, in 1958, the Supreme Court of the United States handed down a decision. They handed down a decision that's been referred to as Brown versus the Board of Education. That was in 1958. In 1963, Seminole County Public Schools integrated. And they integrated at Sanford Junior High, which is now Sanford Middle School. And the African American that was chosen to integrate the school system was Ingrid Burden Nathan. So that was 63 years ago, Brown versus the Board of Education. And Ingrid did it in 1963. She later went on to go to college and come back to this district, the #1 district, and teach for over 30 years as an instructor at Lake Mary High School. Please, let's do something for Ingrid Burden Nathan in 2021. This happened in 1963. 1963. Please, please, let's do something for Ingrid Burden Nathan this year. Also, the Barbershop Conversation and Goldsboro Front Porch has met with county commissioners and city officials about broadband. And I know a lot of parents say, well, I can afford internet, we don't need any help with it, but that's not every household in Seminole County. There are low economic households in this county, and when I say low economic households, that don't mean that they're African American, that don't mean that they're white, that don't mean that they're Spanish, that means that they're low economic households. A lot of people in a category that we just call the working poor. They go to work every day, but they just can't meet all the bills. So we look at something trivial like an internet bill of $40 or $50 a month is nothing. But that's a lot when you got 6, 7 children, a car note, rent, and you make $13.50 an hour. We've met with the county, and I can name them, Commissioner Zimbar, Commissioner Delary, the city manager of Sanford, Norton Bonaparte, and one of your teachers who happens to be the mayor of Sanford, Art Woodruff. And we want to make sure that the kids, Seminole County has done an excellent job with the laptop loaner program. You loan the laptops out, but it doesn't do me much good. Once I get home, I don't have internet access. Those kids just fall farther and farther behind. And remember what I said, low economic. I didn't say white, black, Puerto Rican. Low economic. It's for everybody. And we're trying to get the county to actually, the first 2 years, pay for the internet for these families. And then hopefully they can get a program where they can afford it. They're talking about putting satellites in Goldsboro and Midway. And when you say Midway, we've seen Midway. Midway is not a black community anymore. Just ride by. It's got to be about 9,000 rooftops. It's a mixed community now. And the same thing with Goldsboro. I went to my mother's house yesterday, Dr. Calderon, and I didn't know I had white neighbors, Spanish neighbors, right across the street from Crooms. So it's a melting pot everywhere we go. Everywhere we go.
Time, Mr. Bentley.
Okay. I would really hope that the district will use some of that stimulus money, and I'm going to spill the beans. I know you got $90 million. $90 million is some of that stimulus money on broadband. And also, I heard some people come before me, Dr. Calderon, about the critical race theory. I've been talking for months about black history, and I'm still talking about black history. The same black history that Seminole County Public Schools taught me at Goldsboro Elementary, Sanford Middle, Crooms, and Seminole. Black history, not hate. Black history. You all have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Eric Wilson, longtime, lifelong Seminole County resident. Madam Superintendent, Madam Chairman of the Board, I would like to first extend my condolences to the loss of your father. May Jehovah bless you and keep you and comfort you.
Sir, please address your comment to the entire board.
I'm trying to be human here. Thank you.
Board.
One thing I will say is I will give the 3 people a lot of credit last Thursday. I was not able to be here. I had to work. They said, well, they took an oath to the Constitution, and they actually, for the first time, was going to actually stand upon that principle. Where were we all at a year ago whenever we were putting these things on kids and putting them on your staff? Where was your hand on the Bible then? was a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. We need to remain principled in our convictions of what an elected official is and your oath of office, which is simply you support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I think that we need to be teaching our children more about the Constitution and about the great people that established this country rather than critical race theory and trying to divide people based upon a political class or based upon a certain racial ideology. The thing about it is that we're all American. We all stand up and we pledge the same flag. Whenever the national anthem comes, we all stand up in unity. We're all Americans, and it doesn't matter whether you're right or left. This is the law of the land. And there has been laws that have been written that says that if it doesn't support the law of this land, then it is unconstitutional. So I would like to thank the three of you that actually stood up and did your job. And I would like to second the ideology of having Mrs. Nathan recognized. I've never heard of her. I'm 42 years old. I've lived in Seminole County all my life. Saturday is my birthday. I'm 43. Never heard of this woman until Mr. Bentley brought her name up, and I had the privilege of reading several articles written about her. I think it's about time that we quit with the mask, quit with CRT, and if we're going to really do something to showcase a good thing to do in Seminole County is someone who is a civil rights pioneer to come here and stand where other people stood this evening, get her recognition, get a round of applause, and get her just deserves. Because you know what? That is more important than these masks and everything else. And the last thing that I'll say, and I'll close with this, and I'm going to be very brief. Last Thursday, if we were to take a poll of 100 people, we had 82 people show up against the mask, and we only had 15. So that tells me right there that we have a real bad problem with our averages of 17 versus 82. Because, you know, the thing that I was taught and the principle that I've lived on for almost 43 years of life is that talk is cheap. Walking the walk is how you win. Last Thursday, you should have seen what the public really wants. They want this done and over with. Once you go back to reading, writing, arithmetic, teaching proper history, and again, Black American history and not
Time
CRT.
is up, please.
So thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless Seminole County, and God bless America.
Welcome, JJ.
Try it and see.
Superintendent Beeman, members of the school board, my name is J.J. Holmes. I'm a resident of Longwood, and I'm currently a junior at Lake Mary High School. Go Rams! I never thought I would have been speaking at a school board meeting, but here I am because I feel like I had no other choice. I have been stuck doing remote learning since March 2020, and I desperately want to go back to school. I feel very isolated and lonely at home. I really miss my friends and my teachers. So, with that being said, I was incredibly heartbroken that you didn't make masks mandatory. I struggle to wear a mask because of my disability. And even if I could wear it all day, I use my nose to type on my iPad. Obviously, if I wear a mask, then I wouldn't be able to speak or do my work. I'm embarrassed that my mom is to hit speak on my iPad because I can't hit it with my mask on. So people with weak immune systems and other medically vulnerable people need everyone else to be masked to protect them. What if 17% of the student population wanted no tests ever because it's their freedom to choose? Would you listen? Of course you wouldn't. It's ridiculous. So why are you listening to the 17% during a public health emergency? Look, nobody really wants to wear a mask, but if it would save just one life, isn't it worth it? I think it is. Especially if it's mine. Come on, it's just a piece of cloth. It's not like we're asking kids to wear a full hazmat suit. So I'm renewing my call today and begging you to please, 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 please mandate masks for everyone inside of all school buildings, unless they have a real medical condition that prevents them from wearing a mask. If you mandate masks, then I can finally go back to school safely. It's not too late to end the opt-out. Please let me go back to school by making masks mandatory for all. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, JJ.
You can hang out right here. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate that. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name's Alison Holmes. I have 2 children, one of whom's here in Seminole County Public Schools, and I'm one of the 83%. I sat through 8 Twilight Zone hours of comments on Thursday. Then, at the end of the dumpster fire of public comments, a board member said she'd heard facts at the meeting. I didn't hear any facts. Public comments from that meeting went viral, were a laughingstock. What next? If one of the cult gets up with spoons and tries to hang them on our vaccination spots to show it's supposedly magnetized, will you be thanking them for the scientific demonstration? Heard facts. If you heard facts, then you're sitting in the wrong place. You should be back with the conspiracy cult. What I heard was a pediatric infectious disease expert say, I support universal mask usage. Every other medical expert also agreed with that. Not one of those medical experts said, give the parents a choice. Despite their compelling presentation, most of you ignored every word. Instead, we've got some weird story about a reckless dentist who takes 0 precautions in his practice. Not one single word or reference to the presentation from the medical experts. Then a board member said, I would want to always give the parents the right to choose. Then she promptly voted to take away my right to choose. 17% you're getting pushback from have told their kids the mask is a muzzle, the deep state wants to depopulate and kill you, or put you in concentration camps. That's why the kids don't want to wear masks. That's what they're told. I wouldn't. If I was a kid, and my parents told me that, I'd be terrified. At the end of the day, people with disabilities crawled up the Capitol steps, so people like you couldn't exclude people like JJ. ADA is the law, so yes, follow the law. Yep. I'm requesting a disability accommodation that does not fundamentally alter the educational experience for the other students. So tomorrow I'll be emailing the 3 board members who voted against the recommendations of their medical experts, find out what my choices are. One of you said you believe in the power of a family to choose what's best. Great, I choose safety for my son. Problem is, from where I'm standing, over here, it looks a lot like only 17% of parents have a real choice. I either choose to risk JJ's health, and maybe even his life, or I choose to keep him safe and you'll choose to take me to court for truancy. If I've missed a choice, please reply to my email that I'll be sending in the morning, and I'll see you all at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Manella, Karen Mazzola, Lucy Del Campo,
Michelle Manella, Longwood. I wrongly assumed 8 hours of testimony last Thursday was enough and that we would move on to other topics tonight. In the interest of time, I will simply reiterate that there is a serious lack of data showing masks work. On the other hand, there is significant data showing they are ineffective and cause harm. Those who disagree are challenged to show unequivocally that they work before insisting on forcing them on 5-year-olds all day, every day. Thank you, Board, for following the law in this matter and supporting parental rights. SCPS needs to find an alternative to brain pop due to objectionable content. I'll share some content directly from the curriculum. In the Black Lives Matter protest segment, one animated character named Nat explains that recent protests are about, quote, structural racism in our society, a built-in system of bias that makes life easier for white people and more difficult for Black people and other people of color, close quote. BLM's own publications attest to their Marxist roots and stance as a political hate group that is focused on the destruction of the nuclear family, the use of violence to promote their ideology, and their desire for unequal treatment of people based on skin color. If you're wondering if this material is presented in a balanced manner, presenting multiple perspectives about BLM, sadly you're wrong. Only this one perspective is presented. In another lesson, this time about Harvey Milk, children learn about Milk's romantic relationship with Jack McKinley. According to Wikipedia, Harvey and Jack's sexual relationship first began in late 1964, when McKinley was only 16 years old, prone to depression and suicidal. Sexual intercourse by an adult with a person below a statutorily designated age is statutory rape. Brain pop is idolizing an adult who had a sexual relationship with a suicidal minor, all while honoring LGBT Pride Month. This is inappropriate on numerous levels and does not belong in our schools. In yet another objectionable lesson, a brain pop video idolizes the Latin American communist revolutionary Che Guevara. The cartoon host, Tim, wears a t-shirt with a picture of Che on the front and explains how communism is an economic system where ideally wealth is distributed evenly to everybody and is sort of opposite to capitalism where everyone competes to make money, close quote. There is not a single example in world history where communism hasn't resulted in tyranny and murder. Yet capitalism is portrayed in a negative, while communism is lauded in glowing terms.
Please wrap up. Your time is up.
Despite the fact that Che routinely had gays executed, among other atrocities, our children deserve better than brain pop. We appreciate that you want the best for Seminole County students, and so do we. We will continue showing up as we have been. We are growing at record rates, and most importantly, we're not going away. We look forward to working with you and hope you feel the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Karen Mazzola, Seminole High School Parent-Teacher Association. We remain silent as a PTA as this diversive action took place around the state of Florida and still continues to do, with some school boards going against what the governor is recommending. But after last week's display to this board, not because of the board, but to this board, I felt like we need to come and speak. Parent-Teacher Association represents millions of parents around the world. We have international organizations as well as in all of our states. In Florida, our representation, and specifically in Seminole County schools, are nearly in every school, I think, but one. And so we are well aware that it's very diverse, that the CDC has recommendations, and that is the position of our parent organization, that we follow our federal agency whose mission is public health. And that's what we ask our school board to do. This COVID is rapidly evolving. We've seen the variant, and those are the people that are staying on top of it. Our utmost priority as a Parent-Teacher Association is for all of our members, all of our children, for the safe and healthy, keeping them safe and healthy while meeting the educational as well as the social-emotional needs of our students, our educators, and our families. And we hope that that is your mission as well. In addition, I would remind this whole body that Article 9 of the Florida Constitution that we've swore to uphold states that adequate provision shall be made by law for the uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and high-quality system of free education. Please keep that constitutional mandate in mind when you make your decisions.
Thank you. After Lucy, it's Belinda Ewan, Nina Sandberg, and Kelly Shilson.
Hello, my name is Lucy Del Campo. I'm the parent of a middle school child. I'd like to read a couple of statements from off of the CDC Gov website that was posted on August 26th. It says, fully vaccinated people with Delta variant breakthrough infections can spread the virus to others. For people infected with the Delta variant, similar amounts of viral genetic material have been found among both unvaccinated and fully vaccinated people. Preliminary evidence suggests that fully vaccinated people who do become infected with the Delta variant can spread the virus to others. I think we can agree now, I think everybody has heard a lot, that public health officials around the world acknowledge that these COVID-19 shots are for personal protection only, and we know now that they come with a risk. So we currently have a situation of the vaccinated being able to infect the unvaccinated, and I think everybody's also aware of that breakthrough in Massachusetts where 75% of the people were vaccinated who contracted the virus. With new research that has been made public, I ask that the vaccinated students are also mandated to quarantine when thought to be exposed to a COVID-19 positive person. In light of the new data of the recent COVID-19 shot not being able to prevent transmission, I ask you to consider facts and use common sense when moving forward, please. And to also recognize the potential component of coercion, shaming, and bullying in the mandate that only unvaxxed kids have to quarantine. The quarantine creates an unfair advantage for those exposed but who are permitted to stay in school and separates the unvaxxed from society, which is discriminatory and detrimental to their well-being. We also need to create extra support for those students who will be quarantined or home from school for any reason. It could be a COVID-19 positive student who's recovering but is able to study. Not every kid is studious. I think there's at least half of kids who are not doing well studying from home. They need instruction at school. Given recent data and science, the mandate needs to protect the unvaccinated kids as well as the vaccinated. I ask you again to amend the current quarantine mandate to include the vaccinated students. And I'd like to make a quick statement that I do support medical freedom, parental choice, and I'd like to thank these brave people who are speaking up about the alternative science that is very much there and has been pushed aside, and I'd like to thank them for bringing corruption to light, what's happening, and bringing to point that there are many doctors and scientists that do not agree with the mainstream narrative. Thank you.
Linda Ewan.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I am here today with regards to Brain Pop. While Brain Pop is a good resource on many topics, let's talk about the not so good, the bad, and the ugly. How about a video about Che Guevara? It says, who was Che Guevara and how did his face become so well known? Learn about the Latin American revolutionary who helped lead the communist overthrow of Cuban government. Let's talk today specifically about the video marked Civil Rights. It is the story of Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Whose political platform is being amplified in this signage? The sign saying "Stop Police Violence" paints a broad picture that all police are violent. According to the New York Times, since the campaigns against the police, there has been an increase in crime. Does that sign saying that white silence is violence insinuate all white people who remain silent are violent or are contributing to the oppression of people of color? White silence is an ideology that white people who remain silent are complacent, and Michelle Sayen, who runs an organization called From Privilege to Progress, says what drives the silence is the term Robin DiAngelo coined, which is white fragility. Doesn't that affirm that you must either conform to those values or face the public condemnation and threats otherwise? Freedom of speech definitely protects people from saying what they think and feel, but this is actually a direct contradiction of that freedom. Because in this case, it says if you don't agree with us because you are inherently racist. I hear a lot of standards, Florida standards, specifically people have different views used, but that phrase has carte blanche and can be used any time to negate any opposing opinion. How would a 10 or 11-year-old know that you were presenting different views if you didn't compare and contrast them? Does that lack of different views represent one perspective over another? The philosophy and beliefs behind white silence is violence is diametrically opposed to Dr. Martin Luther King's ideology that a man should be judged by his character and not by the color of his skin. At what point does this content become ideological and leaning toward critical race theory? Critical race theory is derived from Marxist ideology. While adults can decide what their opinion is on these protests and groups, fifth grade children are not mature enough and were not given different point of views to compare and make their own decisions. The student takes what they see as fact and not necessarily opinion or simply different points of view. This material is racially and politically charged in a country that is divided and polarized. Would it have been prudent to give parents the opportunity to view the video considering the controversy of the issues, especially issues in the cartoon, especially since it is within parents' rights to lead and direct the upbringing of their children? The child is not mere creature of state. Pierce versus Society Sisters, 1925. There are many cases rising all over the nation where parents are inciting indoctrination in regards to controversial material like this. If you research the history behind these types of ideology, the connection is communism.
Please wrap
Black
up your
Lives Matter
comments.
is a
Your
great
time is
slogan
up.
and a truthful statement, but the organization is founded by self-proclaimed trained Marxists. They are anti-American, anti-nuclear family, anti-police, pro-communism, and pro-socialism. Patrisse Cullors, founder, openly admires Mao's little book. It's an imperative that we define these movements not just as social movements,
Please wrap
but
up
as
your comments. Your time is up.
I would like to put back into American history what progressive academia has removed in 1929, Black history, starting with John Marin, first African American to evangelize Native Americans.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
If you want to give your comments to the clerk, she'll email them to us.
I will do.
If you haven't done that.
Am I
Thank you.
allowed to send those after the fact so I can just get a better typing of them?
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Nina Sandberg. Then Kelly Shilson, then Tiffany Hughes.
Hi, I'm Nina Sandberg. You need to get rid of brain pop. I recommend Studies Weekly instead if you're going to buy something, but you need to get rid of brain pop. During forced distance learning, I personally notified you guys that my child's teacher had rejected the free online use of Science Studies Weekly and had put my child on brain pop instead. Brain pop did not follow the Florida state standards, was not on grade level, and did not cover the necessary content. It was also full of extreme left-wing radical political propaganda, which is inappropriate. I refused to have my daughter participate in this abomination. I took the free online access to Science Studies Weekly instead. I followed the Florida state standards and taught 4th grade science according to SCPS's own requirements myself, independent from my daughter's class, using Studies Weekly and, of course, other resources that I found on the internet. My child was the only child in the class who did actual SCPS 4th grade science during distance learning. That is out of about 40-something kids. My child was the only one because mom said, we're going to do real SCPS 4th grade science here. We're not going to play on brain pop. It is a complete waste of money, and it's nothing but political propaganda. So I say get rid of it. The school board needs to prohibit lessons which teach that modern individuals, by virtue of sex, race, ethnicity, religion, color, or national origin, are inherently responsible for historic actions committed in the past by other members of the same sex, race, ethnicity, religion, color, or national origin. The board needs to prohibit the teaching of critical race theory in SCPS. CRT teaches children to judge people according to their immutable characteristics, such as skin color, instead of their character. It teaches children to practice new forms of racism, sexism, discrimination, bigotry, prejudice, hate, and intolerance. It is contrary to the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Adolf Hitler used critical race theory to justify the ruthless genocide of 6 million Jews, handicapped persons, and LGBTQ persons. Historically, CRT never ends well and is customarily used to help ruthless fascist, Marxist, communist, and social dictatorships to seize and maintain power. You do not have my permission to teach any critical race theory to my children ever. I have 6 million extended relatives who were murdered by the Nazis in the name of CRT. Do not ever have my permission to teach my children CRT as a Jewish person living in Seminole County.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I wasn't going to speak, but felt compelled, so here I go. I wanted to remind, this is Kelly Shilson. Sorry, I forgot to announce myself. Current data today is 313 active cases on your COVID dashboard out of 77,000 students and employees that have active COVID. I keep hearing 83%, but if you go to an indoor volleyball game or a football game, you'll see that those are actually not the real numbers. Maybe that's percent that actually wrote in notes. That's not talking about the ones that didn't write notes or are just not complying because they're so overly tired of this subject. I'm expecting an update tonight after the meeting or tomorrow on the sunset of the policy coming up on Friday. I really hope that we can just put this all behind us. If we didn't have one person bringing this up at every single meeting, we would not be here, and it's pulling people out of the woodwork. I've seen people at this meeting I've never seen at a meeting before because we're just tired of listening to this. And if you go online and look at the vile comments from one side, they want people who don't agree with them to die. That is so loving. And it just shows their moral character. And if they're wanting us to die, what are they teaching their students or their children that are now sitting next to somebody who's not wearing a mask? And so I encourage you just to stop this craziness, get rid of the mask, let people decide for themselves, and I don't hate anybody here. I may have a different opinion. I don't personally attack anyone, ever. I think that it's a difference of opinion. But why would a doctor speak out when they are immediately attacked for their opinion? Why would they ever say anything other than wear a mask? They want us to be healthy and safe. That's not their job to make political decisions and to allow our freedoms. So, like Gerald said, there's no more 4 out of 5. It's always 5 out of 5 because we're only getting the one side. I'm just going to end with this. I don't hate them. I feel sorry for them. You do you, I'll do me. Let's all be kind. Thank you.
Tiffany, welcome.
Good afternoon, Superintendent Beeman, school board members, and board attorney. My name is Tiffany Hughes, along with homeowner, Seminole and Orange County advocate, and more importantly, a mother. As mentioned here this evening, you all have heard resoundingly from the community a broad spectrum opinion on mask versus non-mask. As a mom, my son has been tested for COVID-19 twice. Going to urgent care every time someone in his class gets sick is heart-wrenching every single time. COVID-19 is not and should not be a political or polarizing issue. This is a people issue, a community issue, a neighbor issue. These are our children we are talking about. It is my job, and it is your job as community leaders to protect them as a collective. I urge each and every one of you to continue to engage the experts, listen to the facts, and actively protect our children. That should not be a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public input. Thank you, everyone. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation on the consent agenda?
That the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Superintendent, do you have a report?
Just the read only in regards to the change orders.
Thank you. Board members, committee update?
You want me to start? Yeah. So I was not able to go to the Business Advisory Committee meeting. They are going to start sending us quarterly reports, which is very efficient, I think. They toured. Mr. Rice, did they go to Lyman High School? Did they go to Lyman? Chad saying yes. They toured the new Career and Technical Center at Lyman for their meeting after hours. And I have the Children's Cabinet meeting tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Pinnock?
I have not had any committee meetings.
Thank you. Member Calderon?
Not directly committee, but the Seminole Chamber Board that I sit on held their annual Chamber Business Awards, and it was great to see so many profitable and successful businesses that partner with their school district be nominated and chosen. I also wanted to give a real quick shout out, if I could, to our senior interns that I had the chance to welcome into the community. Unfortunately, it had to be by WebEx, but it's exciting to see how many people are choosing to come to Seminole County Public Schools to hone their craft and hopefully come back and work with us in our SCPS family. And lastly, we were at the Lyman High School ribbon cutting for our new career technical building, and I thank the entire team for their diligence and attention to detail, and I think it's just going to be a wonderful opportunity for so many of our students that are actually taking advantage of it from across the entire district. It was great to talk one-on-one with the teacher who actually stays after school every day to welcome students from other high schools who wish to take those certifications in HVAC and welding and such, so I'm really excited for their futures. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I sit on the foundation board for Seminole County Public Schools, and they had excess funds that they hadn't committed to specific line items to the tune of $437,688. After much conversation, they decided that they would do $57,158 in 2-year scholarships, an endowment principal for $100,000, new scholarships $36,000, and $52,215 to support teachers with professional development. So it's really great. Probably a one-time, or any other time they need to shimmy things up, they'll do that. Thursday, Superintendent, did we not give you direction?
Yes, you did.
Would you reiterate that direction, please?
There was various points to the direction, but part of that direction did include extending the procedure for 30 days and then coming back for a review.
Thank you. Anything else, board members? Okay, with no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, Chairman, I'll make it very quick. I'd like to request 2 executive sessions regarding 2 litigation matters so that we can get board direction on those litigation matters. The first one being Shepherd versus School Board of Seminole County, and the other one being Jane Doe versus School Board of Seminole County. We'd like that executive session to be held September 28th, 2021. Thank you. September.